This is the new podcast we're going to be doing mostly throughout the week. We're going to be covering many current events that are happening. We're going to give our take on them from a Christian's perspective and what's going on, as well as some updates on Christian news in the world today. Starting off, biggest news probably in America right now: Donald Trump's inauguration. Donald Trump is back in the office. We're starting with back with the new Republican regime of Donald Trump for a short another 4 years. If he makes it that long, honestly, there's a lot of people gunning for him right now, as we saw from a lot of the other news and a lot of the assassination attempts. Given the choices from what we had between Camilla and Donald Trump, I would say this is definitely the best result. While I definitely won't agree that Trump is the most moral person out there, he seems to have this weird air about him where from his past and things he's done, he's very immoral, and from some of the things he currently does, he's a little immoral. Now, whether that's changed because it seems to be believe he has a divine mandate from God to put America back on the correct course, which who knows, he might. Obviously, he does kind of have a divine mandate from God because all authority is placed by God, so God obviously placed him there, so he's not truly wrong in that aspect. However, with what we talked about, you've seen the videos of him, the things he's said in the past and things he's done. I'm not 100% convinced he's changed and he's a Christian now. I would like to believe he is. I would love if he was. If he becomes a Christian, wonderful. That's great. I don't know if I'm 100% convinced that he did. However, he is doing a lot of different moral things that I can definitely agree with. One of the biggest one was the executive order they signed that banned transgender ideology in the federal government. What this means is in the executive order he established there's only man and female, and you have to identify as one of these two things in federal government. There will be no special or no different treatment if you say you're trans, if you're the other one. This is blocking men from going into women's restrooms in federal buildings. So it's completely different than anything it's been before. So this is a absolutely big win for us in this standpoint to give women safe spaces again in the federal building. So no longer can men or creeps or perverts just walk in anywhere they want and do anything they want in the women's restrooms. They can't get some weird asylum into the women's restroom because they say they're women. So this is a big step. We still have a lot to do and a lot of more grounds to fight on this because while this is a big blow to transgender ideology, it's not the end of it. We still have public spaces and private spaces in the terms of different businesses that are allowing these things and still putting younger girls into danger. So if they can still go into some locker rooms and undress in front of these poor, traumatized girls who have to witness this and seeing things they shouldn't see, and it's absolutely a sin. God made no mistakes when He made you. He made you either man or woman, and that was by His divine choice. And He definitely chose right. He never is wrong. You get that? God didn't get it wrong. So this whole idea of I'm in the wrong body or I actually am a man, that when a woman says I'm a man or a man says I'm a woman, it's completely wrong. That's gender dysphoria. It's something completely else, and there's definitely underlying causes to it. And people nowadays just don't want to go through the work or the trouble of identifying the underlying causes of this. They just want to affirm them and move on, and then it just causes big problems. And then our women suffer in tragic and ways, and if we want to protect them, we have to fight against it. And when we do protect them, we're labeled as bigots, transphobes, and other things. And that's going to be, if that's what it takes, I'm going to wear that as a badge of honor. If you want to call me a transphobe or a bigot for trying to protect either my wife or any other woman, so they don't have to see a man undressing in front of the locker room, I'll take that badge proudly. I'll be called a bigot and a transphobe all day long. Moving on into some new news, Carrie Underwood has caused some crisis talks with American Idol for the very simplest and silliest and dumbest of reasons out there. So, at Donald Trump's inaugural address, Carrie Underwood was on performance there, which is Very good, very great. You think as a singer, that's definitely want to be one of the places you want to be, but it's causing some backlash with American Idol, because they now apparently are in crisis talks over her being the judge and choosing to perform that. And one of the quotes of a source that they were talking about there, Idol contestants come from a wide range of diverse backgrounds, and so do the people who work on the show, a source says. There are concerns that her apparent political stances might make contestants feel uncomfortable. So he very clearly states and goes off there saying that they are inclusive of everyone. Everyone comes from the diverse backgrounds, but unless you come from the correct one, the people are going to feel uncomfortable and unsafe. So what they're basically saying there is everyone's allowed to be here as long as you align with our political views, and that has been definitely the view on the left for a very long, long time. That you can be just completely and utterly wrong while they say they're including. As if you choose the wrong side with them, you're not included. So their inclusivity is pretty wrong. And so my take on this is just it's silly, it's dumb. I just don't even know. Obviously, there's definitely lies in the woke left and things like that, and we're getting pretty political here right now. But this is the current events, and my take as a Christian as this is it's silly, 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 silly stuff. All right, now moving into some more Christian news of the day, bringing it back into it after the fun little side there into Carrie Underwood. We're going into I definitely am probably going to butcher this name, but Marion Boudet delivers woke anti-Trump inaugural prayer service. So, as you've probably seen a lot already in a few different ways, I won't go over it into detail on what happened exactly here, just the Spark Notes version. So, Marion Bud is she is a adorned bishop for the Episcopal Church, and she delivered Trump's inaugural prayer service sermon. So, and a lot of what she did is just completely disgusting and sickening to use for the mantle of the church in these ways, where she actually did call out Donald Trump for the exact same thing that she was doing. Because back when there's the BLM rise and everything, and the church was burned, Donald Trump went there to address the protesters and the tragedy that happened. And what ended up happening was then she called Donald Trump out for using the church as a mantle to push his ideology way, way off base there a little bit, because she's doing the exact same thing. Uh, maybe Donald Trump was doing that. Maybe he was using it as uh, a way to use the mantle of the church for his own political agenda. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Who knows? So what the big thing about that was, though, is she's also doing the exact same thing, because she is definitely all the way back since 2003. The Episcopal Church has been pushing the alphabet clubs. That's the LGBTQ plus minus sign divided by at Anderson. That those crazy bunch out there. They've been allowing him into the church as church leadership, and you know those who practice homosexuality, it's very clearly stated in the Bible that they will not receive the kingdom of heaven. So they definitely are not in line. And if you're in that lifestyle, you can't really be with Christ. And so therefore, you don't meet the requirement of being with Christ to be a leadership of his church. So they are completely in the wrong there. They are definitely contradictory to what God teaches in the Bible and what Jesus says in the New Testament and what has happened in the Old Testament. So no matter where you go in the Bible, if you want to go for the Old Testament, if you want to do it for the New Testament, no matter where you go, you're going to find that this is just completely and utterly wrong. So obviously they're using the mantle of the church, and she just completely pushed her woke agenda out in that sermon too, where she's at one point she discussed the immigrant issue, that him trying to push out the immigrants is just terrible. You're taking away. They're here and they're willing to do these low-paying menial jobs. So basically, what she's saying here, and I'm not the first person to say this, is she and the woke left don't want to lose their well, not free slave labor. They don't want to lose their slave labor. They want to be able to pay these people less than minimum wage or minimum wage to do the menial tasks that they don't want to do themselves, or that they say Americans aren't going to want to do, so we should just leave it to them. But what this really is just saying is they don't want to lose their indentured servitude class. Now, another thing is she called out that they're have mercy on the LGBTQ and the transgenders, which, uh, yeah, that's right, but in the way she did it was wrong, where she's basically saying that they're threatened and their lives are in danger, and they have, as we said before, all the way back into 2003, they adopted the Alphabet Club's ideology and let them into the church as church leadership. Now, when I say let into the church, I don't mean physically they let them into the church building, because they should be allowed to be into the church building. They should not be let into the church leadership or into, say, membership of a church. Uh, One of the basic things of membership for any church, or it should be to help protect your doctrine, is that you are, one, saved by the grace of God. And you can say you're saved by the grace of God, but if you have some pretty big indicators out in public that you are not saved, that you're living contrary to the Bible, your lifestyle is not reflecting it. And this only does not just, go for the LGBTQ uh, people. It Little earthquake there. Excuse me. We're not only called, or it doesn't only stand for the LGBTQ plus people. This stands for anyone living in open sin that is contrary to the Bible and with no remorse for it, or no indications that they're going to want to change. So so the people who live in wedlock or out of wedlock, of course, the people who live together, their boyfriend and girlfriend, they're sleeping together, things like that. They're cohabitating. Obviously, that's wrong. People who are heavy drinkers, things like that, who are the drunkards, things like that, they also wrong. I'm not just calling them out because I hate the LGBTQ people. Obviously, I love them. Not I just don't love what they're doing. Obviously, I love the sinner. I hate the sin. Yeah, there's your old you know church churchanese there. Love the sinner, hate the sin. You've heard that 100 times, but it's true, and we really got to think about that more. Of not allowing ourselves to fall deeper and deeper into hate, because obviously that puts a bad look on us, and that puts us away from God. That we should not be hating these people. We should be loving them, but we should be hating their sin. We should be pointing out, hey, you say you're a Christian and you say you're in the church and you say you're of Christ, but you're doing these majorly contradictory things and you're living in open sin. I don't know if you actually know this, but you may not be saved, and you really need to reevaluate your life at this point. And I want you, to be here at the church. I love having you here. It's wonderful to have you here. I like you as a person, and I want you to be saved. I want to see you in eternity in heaven. So I would really hate, and it would be very hateful if I didn't point these things out to you. It is not hate to point out you're living in sin. It is not hate to point out you're contradictory what God teaches. That actually is love. That is showing them that you care enough about them to worry about their eternal soul. To how little do you have to care someone to go with them on whatever they want to do, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, and then just allow them to be damned to hell. And because that actually would be a form of hate, is allowing them to be damned to hell and not pointing out what they need to do to get right with Christ. And if they don't want to listen to it, that's between them and God. You've done your job. But our goal and our ways, and all we hear at Pastors Vox, is to love people, love on them in line and in terms with Scripture and what God teaches. We have to do it that way. There is no other way than to love, love, love. But it's the form that the love takes that can get a bit confusing and a bit wrong here. So I think as we go on, and remember, as we deal with these LGBTQ plus divided sign alphabet people, their ideology, they're wrong. It's evil. It's making its way into the church. The Episcopal Church is definitely one of them. Their doctrine is now faulty and flawed and against the word of Christ. It's the same with the First United Methodist Church. They're also wrong and contradict the word of Christ. And if this is going to get me flack, if you're going to come and you're going to say I'm wrong, and you're going to call me all sorts of mean names, and you're going to say I'm not showing the love of Christ. I want you to go ahead and I want you to read the Bible. I want you to really read it, undoctrinated, without uh, previous bias we were talking about. I want you to go through and analyze it, listen to the other things, read the verses, read what it says in a proper translation of the Bible from the original Greek. Obviously, I'm partial to NASB 1995 or the 2020 version, but typically I read out of the 1995 because that is more of a direct translation. Just like the ESV, they're a little more difficult to read because they're going for more of a direct translation to get the meaning across instead of just making it easier to read. Now, those easy to read Bibles like that are great too. I have a reader's Bible that's in an easier to read format, so I can sit down and read the Bible and enjoy it. But when I want to get deep into the Word and I really want to dig into what it means and what it says, I go for my direct translation Bible that I have to really think about and what they're saying, because some of the grammar in there is a little weird and janky, but that's because they're keeping it in line with how the original Greek or Hebrew grammar was, or the original Aramaic grammar was. So getting back into all this and all these different things is the best part that we can do, and the best thing we can do as Christians is to love these people, and also in our love point out they're living in sin and it's contradicting the Word of God. And no matter what you do and no matter what you say, if you're not fully prepared to understand what God teaches and what He preaches, and you just want the Bible to be your own little feel good happiness, I'm going to heaven because I'm not a terrible person, because I'm not, I'm not a murderer, I don't commit adultery, stuff like that. And if you do commit adultery, that's a problem. And remember, the Lord says just lusting after a woman and with your eyes is akin to idolatry. So yeah, the big point is, the big takeaway is, love the sinner, hate the sin, because guess what? We're all sinners. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. So no matter what happens, we need to remember to show love to these people. So anyway, that's the first episode of Pastors Vox Podcast. We'll be back next week with more current events and more Christian news. So we hope to see you there. God bless.